Hey guys, how's it going? Eli here, back with another video where today we're going to be having a conversation on the topic of sustainable growth, as well as understanding why certain cards and sets perform better in a bear market than others. Without further ado, let's just jump right into it. So as always, got to get out of the way. We just finally pushed 500 subscribers. Thanks once again to all those who have been in such support of the YouTube channel. I can't really thank you guys enough for all that you've done. And as always, as we continue to improve, we're going to be giving more and more away to you guys. And so for those people that don't already know, if you are not subscribed to the channel, you are missing out on the opportunity for our weekly giveaways, where we are giving away up to 3 winners, 6 Pokemon Fusion Strike packs for each. All you have to do to enter is be subscribed, leave a like, and comment down below on any of the any of the 3 videos that we post each and every week. You're allowed to have up to multiple entries if you do subscribe. Of course, you can like and comment on each one of the 3, which allows you to have, those opportunities increase. And then as we progress more and more with more and more subscribers, we will then continue to give more and more back to you guys. But now that I got that out of the way, let's get back to the video. So what do I kind of mean sustainable growth? What do I kind of mean niches in the market? So basically one of the biggest things, obviously we've really talked about is looking at the overall prices of the market, So we're looking at the current price TCG player. I kind of like to give an update once every week or other week, just because I don't want to spend a lot of time on the video taking a look at the market, even though I do think it's important, because time is very relative in terms of, like, if I looked at it every single day, unless it dropped 20% in one day, it's going to go up, down 5%, 10%, and then eventually it'll find a bottom. So with that being said, Evolving Skies booster boxes, they're at around 110, Fusion 103. You see Celebrations at a low of 60, which is crazy. Celebrations Ultra Premium has really started to take a hit, which is really exciting for a lot of people. Darkness Ablaze is pushing 100. Vivid is 107. So, like, we've seen just more and more continued downside. These Celebrations Elite Trainer Box cases, you can get a case, and I want to double check this too, because if you can get a case for 503, I mean, shipping's probably not included. Nope, shipping is included. You can literally buy a case for like MSRP. So that's crazy that you're able to do that. I remember Celebrations Center exclusive were going for around 100 plus, so things have really started to get a lot cheaper. However, with that being said, we're going to transition into the part of the market that I usually spend a little bit of time on and don't talk about a lot, which is kind of understanding the niches and why certain areas of the market like to perform better than others. And I think there's usually 3 kind of things that you guys want to remember. Overinflation, underperforming, and more specifically, I should say, not underperforming, but I should say undervalued, and then as well as hype. So what do I mean by those 3 things? So when I say overinflated, typically the ones that are going to retrace the hardest are the ones that are a little bit too, how do I want to say this? They're oversaturated, they're hypervalued more than they should be. And then you have cards that are undervalued, which are very scarce and are not as valuable as they should be based on the rarity or scarcity. And then lastly, you have the hype around it. And more specifically, I don't even think hype's the right word. I think more or less the environment, I think, is a better word in understanding. And what I mean by environment. So for those people that don't know, we had the kind of, first quote unquote, relevant Pokemon bubbles since the inception of it back in around 2016, 2017 when Pokemon Go came out. Pokemon Go Bubble is what people called it. And so because of that, you started to see a lot of resurgence with Pokemon cards. However, from that, a lot of cards perform better than others, and some cards didn't even perform, period. And so we're going to be kind of taking a look at the little bit of historical data points to kind of see what cards performed during that time well, what cards performed poorly, and the reasons why. So for those people that don't know, Pokemon Go, when it first came out, was an introduction to playing the game mobily of Pokemon, but instead of you having you fight your Pokemon, train your Pokemon, you have mechanics which allow you to walk around and play the game, and you can interact with the areas around you. And so for that reason, it was super popular because it introduced Gen 1 again. And so for those people that were fans of Gen 1 or were introduced into Pokemon during Gen 1, it was a very nostalgic game for them. And so for that reason, we're going to be looking at some of the nostalgic data around back during the bubble. and this is not even indicative too. This PSA 10, please ignore this. Please ignore this image. This is not indicative of what I'm about to show you. But as far as it goes, if we're going to be looking at the overall price action data in regards to this overall Charizard, we're going to take a look and see what kind of has played an effect in the overall future pricing of the market. So back, like I said, going back and looking at the price chart, which is taking 3,000 years to load, we can kind of take a look and see. Hold on one second. All right, now let's take a little bit of a zoom in and let's take a look and see what happened back during the time. So we can see price data around 2016. You saw the price of the Charizard at around $700, $600, right? $565, right? So that was about the general price of it. Then you started to see it really start to climb as soon as it started pushing 2017, and then it kept climbing. Then it took a little bit of a dip, and then it took a huge peak back in 2018 at 3,000. Then it dipped a little bit down again, and then it really hit another peak, which was lower. Once again, we've talked about this concept, lower highs. And then from there, you started to see it really find its base at around $1,000. And that was where you found it literally bottom into 2020 before it started to really take off. So what's interesting about this is you saw that the overall sustainable growth was the card itself went from what, like 500 and some odd dollars, I think is how much we said. Low being 565 and a 3,000. I mean, you just want to, round it. You can say to yourself, that's about a 600% growth if I'm correct. If my math serves me correct, I mean, we could do 3,000 divided by 565. Yeah, that's about, 530% growth. And that was in the span of, a little bit over a year after it kind of initially then found its bottom, which was at around $1,000. Now, you might say to yourself, like, oof, that's a huge price decrease going up, $3,000 and then going back down to 1,000. But during that time, that was kind of what was sustainable growth. That was kind of like, okay, you hit an all-time high, and then you drop down, and that all-time high that you went from and you dropped down to the new low, that was still about 100% higher than what the original bottom was. So, and the reason why I think the Charizard performed so well during this time is because you were looking at Gen 1 Pokemon, right? Gen 1 Pokemon were super duper popular at the time, and so for that reason, I feel like those were the ones that performed the best just based off of some of the historical data that we're looking at. Now let's take a look at another card during that time that wasn't a Gen 1 Pokemon. Let's take a look at a popular one, Rayquaza Gold Star Holo, right? So we take a look at historical data points here. We can see that around that time, back in 2017, you really started to see the card start to gain prominence in price. $3,572 went all the way up to around $8,000. It's about a 250% increase. Then it dropped all the way down to $6,000. Then it went all the way up to 8,500 again. And then from there, you saw it really take a final dive to $6,700. As far as the overall growth or the return on the overall Charizard, the price in and of itself went up, 530%, versus the growth of this card went about, 150%? I said 250, so please correct me on that. So the growth in and of itself, although it did grow, it wasn't as strong as far as it goes when it came to the Charizard. However, in regards to the retrace, it still hit a low of about $6,000 at its lowest point going forward. But with that being said, that still is not as deep of a retrace as you saw the Charizard. So you have to ask yourself the question when looking at this overall sustainable growth compared to the Charizard, is the reason why it retraced so hard for the Charizard because it was overhyped? Is it because it was overpopulated? Or why is it that the Rayquaza, once again, decided to not retrace as much? And so, but at the same exact time, it didn't go up as high. And I think that's where you really start to see what lies within the volatility. I think that during that time, the Charizard, or more specifically base set, was a lot more popular because we were looking at first generation cards. And so for that reason, it pumped higher. Then you say to yourself, but when looking at the overall population report, this is 47 for PSA 10. This is not actually 443. This is in the several thousands. So I don't know why this says that. This is not updated properly. But regardless, with that being said, the overall population for this is still much higher regardless when comparing it. And so for that reason, it has a lot less upside, but downside when it comes to the Charizard retracing, because there's more out in population, which means that as demand goes down, supply will still either stay stagnant or increase, which will then cause the imbalance in pricing. Versus with the Rayquaza, since there's less on the market, you're going to see less of a fluctuation downwards, but also at the same exact time, since the overall hype during that era was for the Gen 1 Pokemon, you didn't see as strong of an increase. But however, all tides, what's the term I'm looking for? A rising tide lifts all boats. There we go. That's the term that I'm using. So basically what that means is that even in times in which there are cards that aren't going to perform as well, whether it be because of the hype or whether it be because of the card in and of itself, all rising tides raise ships, which basically what that is supposed to mean is the overall general sentiment of the market will still cause everything around it to go up. So with that being said, Rayquaza, low population card, still performed strong during the time due to the fact of the matter that the market was up and up, but also at the same time it retraced less because of its overall PSA quality. Not PSA quality, but content. Why can't I speak today? PSA amount in population. Now here's the one that we're going to kind of correlate to today, and this is what the main topic or main look of the video is going to be. We're going to be looking at the Lv.x card Torterra, and more specifically we're going to be looking at it from back then to now. So we can look at the historical price points and we can say to ourselves, from the overall Torterra, we can go back and look at it peaking at around $115 back in 2018, and then from there you saw the price absolutely plummet all the way down to around $19.50 is what it seems to be the low, right? And so I'm sorry, no, it went all the way up to 153. So the price of it went down even lower. So the overall value of the card itself went from 153 all the way down to that price point of 1950, which that's almost a 90% retrace. So this card in and of itself retraced even harder, but also at the same time, you say to yourself, wow, there's 57 in existence, and who knows how many was in population during that time. I mean, if we want to take a look at the population chart for it, the overall amount during that time was, 51. So it looks like there's not been many that have increased. But regardless of the fact of the matter, that's still a pretty steep decrease. And I think that really came down to the fact that, one, the demand was not there, and two, the card in and of itself during its time was undervalued. And this is where we're kind of going to distinguish this, because we're going to look at the sales price history and the consistent sales price history of the Torterra over the past year. So it found its bottom at 19, then over time it started to gradually go back up again, $45, $60, 152, 450, 600, and then a more recent sale of $765, and that was about a couple weeks ago. So the value of this card is still going up over time. And I think that really stems from the fact of the matter that, one, the card in and of itself was undervalued, and why is it now that all of a sudden it's beginning to find some prominence in its value? And I think that really stems from the hype around the Diamond and Pearl remakes. Not to mention as well, we're pushing into the Diamond and Pearl era in regards to Pokemon cards. So if we want to take a look, we can see that there are, I don't think it was on PokeBeach, I could be 100% wrong, but with the overall Star Birth, there were some cards that were revealed. Once again, PokeBeach, give them credit for the upcoming set that is going to be released in January. This is kind of going to be falling in line with some of the cards that are going to be in our Brilliant Star. You see Turtwig, you see Grottle, you see Torterra, obviously Shaman, we know about that. You've got Chimchar, Monferno, Infernape, Hollow, and then you've got Piplup, Empoleon, and Primplup. So you're starting to see once again kind of that rebirth, or kind of that I don't even know what you want to say it, but just the hype is kind of coming back for that Gen 4 Pokemon. And so for that reason, I think what you really start to see within the current market as well, a lot of the Wizards of the Coast cards have started to go down in value, because whether they were oversaturated because of the amount that were coming back from PSA, or whether it be because of the fact of the matter that they were never as scarce as we expected, or whether because demand for those products is going down, or whether just because demand for the overall market is going down. You're seeing cards like this that have their own little niche because of the fact of the matter that there is that popularity in that Gen 4, that hype for that Gen 4, that resurgence in that it has a low PSA population for its 10. And so for that reason, you've seen it perform very strong recently within the market. Now, what makes it even more interesting when talking about, its overall performance is comparing it then to the overall sealed product that is Lv.x Era booster boxes. So, because we're going to take a look and see basically how that has performed in the most recent, month. So when the booster box prices back in 2016, I think you could buy a Majestic Dawn for around $300. You could find a lot of these booster boxes for around, a couple $100, which is insanely cheap in my opinion. And then of course you saw a lot of them really start to go upwards into, the high thousands. I think you were able to buy a Stormfront for $7,000 or $8,000. You saw like a lot of these prices really start to skyrocket. However, what's been very interesting is seeing the overall price changes within the last couple of weeks to month in regards to sealed. Because you would presume that with that being said, since the overall single cards themselves are going to be more valuable based off the overall scarcity, you would also say to yourselves, okay, so then wouldn't sealed be something that would perform very strong when kind of taking a look and saying to yourself, okay, let's look at some of the older Pokemon booster boxes. So this Supreme booster box, if I'm correct, around its peak was selling for around $10,000, and then prior it sold for $7,000, and now it just sold for a whopping low of $4,200. So the price of the booster box is absolutely plummeted. And these are not just garbage booster boxes. These are nice sealed case acrylic booster boxes. Platinum was selling for around $5,000 to $6,000. Then I saw an older history for 4K, now $3K. You're starting to see, like I said, $7,000, $5,650. You're seeing a lot of these cards, and specifically these Era booster boxes, really begin to go down in value. And it's interesting because there's an offsetting correlation between that. We obviously talk a lot about at the time that when it comes to booster box prices, you usually say booster box sealed is going to be stronger performing than single cards. And you're going to say single cards are typically going to be weaker long term. And then of course on top of that, you would assume that if if single card prices are going up, then therefore booster box prices must also go up as well. But there's this small little niche in the market as it stands right now where it's the overall individual cards are the ones that are performing the best compared to the overall sealed product. As far as it goes to why there's an explanation of that, I cannot give you a definitive answer, but this is still something that I think that's very interesting to look at, because this is how we come upon identifying niches in the overall market. The only true explanation I could potentially give you is just the speculative grading, basically how hard it is to grade these cards. It was known for being an era, one that was already not very popular. So you would assume that these would still retain its value, but in regards to cards for the Lv.x era, they were already, difficult to find 10s, whether it be because they were miscut all the time, whether it be because a lot of the promos were poorly, packaged because you had the kind of plastic holders, or whether it be because the fact of the matter that these sets in and of themselves, there's not going to be a lot of them really being regraded or graded back into the market in, 10s. And so with that being said, I think that you have to understand that although I talk a lot of the times about how long-term sealed is going to retrace less, it's going to be safer, you also have to understand that there's no guarantee that you're going to have the cards perform weaker than the overall sealed. And that's just something that comes with the niches within the market. And so, yeah, that's kind of what we're once again boiling everything down to. We're looking at the overall hype within the time, what is causing the prices to go up, and what is the era that we're kind of speculating around. Obviously back in 2017 it was the first edition rebirth of Pokemon Go, and we're talking in correlation to 2021 it's Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl. 2, we're also talking about, okay, when looking at the overall retrace, why did some retrace stronger than others? We took a look at the Charizard and saw, okay, the Charizard retraced stronger because even though the card in and of itself was super hyped and so it went up higher than a lot of the other cards, it also went down a lot more than the other cards due to the fact of the matter that you started to see a high population report. Same with looking at the Rayquaza, although it didn't go up as much because once again we had that kind of hype and all rising tides raise all ships, but it didn't go up as high because it wasn't part of that hype, but it didn't go down as much because of its overall PSA population. But then once again going back and we looked at the Torterra and we saw to ourselves, okay, this Torterra was one that was at the time worth around $170, $190, retraced about 90%, and that was because the card in and of itself was undervalued at the time. And now whether you want to make an argument it was overvalued at being $190, and then it overall retraced super hard, but for a card that has a population of 57, you would say to yourself that, okay, this card should not have retraced as hard as it did, like something like the Rayquaza, and I think that really comes down to the fact of the matter that the card was undervalued, and now due to the hype, you're starting to see the kind of correction upwards, I would say, in regards to looking at the overall price that is going to be the proper price, I should say, for the overall Lv.x era, or more or less the cards are playing catch up because while the rest of the market was going absolutely parabolic, the Lv.x's were kind of the laggards, and now they're really starting to take off. The question, of course, will remain, is that going to change as soon as you start to see Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, and Legends Arceus move on, and the sets within it are no longer going to be Sinnoh? That's something only time will tell, and we'll take a look at that sometime down the road. But yeah, so those are all the kind of main points that we're looking at. It's very important, of course, that you guys understand this information because, like I've mentioned countless times before, just because everything is going just because the general market's going up doesn't mean everything's going to go up, and just because certain parts of the general market are going up 300, 400, 500% doesn't mean everything's going to go up that much. Certain things will perform worse in bull markets, and certain things will perform better in bear markets. And so understanding these things, so that for you as the investor type, so for you as the individual collector who likes to look at, okay, is it a good time to start buying Lv.x's for my collection? Is it not a good time? These are things that are important for you so that you can know, okay, this is a niche in the market that is performing well. I think prior to the lead up, like here's a perfect example, right? I, first off, am already someone who is a huge Sinnoh fan. I knew going into it that they were going to be speculatively making a remake for Sinnoh. And so what I started doing is I started buying up a bunch of Lv.x cards at around anywhere between $3 to $5 a piece. With that being said, then the prices skyrocketed all the way up to anywhere between, some of them as low as $20, some of them as high as $100+ that I was buying for like $5-10 back in like early 2020. And this was like shortly before they kind of announced that they were going to be doing the remake. I speculatively took a guess and said to myself, I have a feeling they're going to be kind of, they're going to be hyping up a lot of the Lv.x cards because I think they're undervalued, and I think they're going to kind of turn into the overall next big thing when it comes to overall price spike. And I think they're going to perform well in the market due to that hype. And I think as far as it goes, if we're looking at historical trends, I wouldn't be surprised if within the next 3 to 4 years, when they do the next remake, inevitably, that the overall black and white era cards are going to be the next up to be in that kind of cycle. Not financial advice, not a financial advisor, but if we look at the fact they did a Fire Red Leaf Green remake, they did a remake for Heart Gold Soul Silver remake, Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, then they did Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl. What's going to be next with black and white? Who knows? But based off of what we're seeing with history, it kind of tells us that when games come out, basically that have a hype around a certain era, a lot of the cards really start to perform stronger over a lot of the other ones, or the ones that are undervalued begin to find true value during the overall hype or rebirth of nostalgia during that time period. But yeah, that is all I have for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, we are doing our weekly giveaway. All you have to do to enter is be subscribed, leave a like, and comment down below on any of the 3 videos we post for the week on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You can post a like and comment on each one of those videos, which allows you up to 3 entries. On top of that, we're going to have 3 winners. So you're going to have pretty high odds as it is to be able to win some of these packs. But yeah, thank you guys all so much. Hopefully this was information that you guys found somewhat of an interesting one. I think it's, like I said, going back to it, very important to kind of look at the niches in the market and say to ourselves, why is this doing X? And really taking a look at it. And you know, if you disagree with me, if you agree with me, let me know in the comment section down below. Let's have a conversation about it. And if there's something, once again, as always, you guys want me to talk about and bring up in one of our next videos, please do let me know, as I'm always open to ideas of things to discuss. But that is all I have. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Until then, I will see you guys on Friday. Peace.